Scott Morrison was never at serious risk of being knifed before the election, despite those inside the party knowing he needed a second miracle if he was to win. That's the opinion of one of his former ministers, Zed Seselja, who has opened up about the coalition's election loss. In the first of an exclusive two-part chat with our senior political reporter, Jonathan Lee, Seselja questions the handling of the pandemic, the creation of the National Cabinet, and perceived failures around the respect of women.
It's the first time Zed Seselja has returned to Parliament. Does it hurt?
Yeah, of course. There's a level of, rejection.
The former Pacific Islands minister has now lost his Senate seat, making it the first time in a long time the 45-year-old Canberra Conservative hasn't walked the lawns of federal Parliament or Legislative Assembly.
Do you think your mob was stale or just on the nose?
Well, I think there are a number of factors that led to it. I think going for a fourth term is not easy.
Especially during a once-in-a-century pandemic that saw the federal government go from unassailable to unelectable in some voters' eyes, as vaccine delays dragged lockdowns out by months.
The electorate's views on us had probably been largely formed before the campaign. When it came to, for instance, the rollout of vaccines, I think we were doing a lot.
But still,
there was a feeling and certainly a narrative that took hold that we weren't getting it done quickly enough.
So much so, he questions whether the Morrison government should have rejected the expert health advice which recommended AstraZeneca be restricted to those aged over 50 in order to prevent rare cases of deadly blood clots. The vaccine had been intended to do the bulk of Australia's vaccination program.
I think that really set things back considerably at the time. I think there's a question mark over whether we should have accepted that advice because I think that AstraZeneca is a safe vaccine. I think it's proven to be a very effective vaccine, but you're in a difficult spot.
Another issue, National Cabinet.
Well, I think the National Cabinet was a correct and heroic response at the time for the country. I think it then became a bit of an albatross.
Effectively tying the former PM's hands.
There was a feeling, perhaps amongst some of our people, that we didn't stand up to the premiers.
Daily, then weekly meetings elevated their popularity, inviting battles around borders and funding the Morrison government couldn't win. Equally damaging were concerns around the safety of women.
The government failed in the respect of women. It didn't listen, it didn't change. The Prime Minister didn't go out and meet when there was the large protest on the lawn. Would you agree that there was a failure there?
I would agree that an impression was created to that effect. I think some of the issues that emerged in this building were very distressing, very concerning and of legitimate public concern.
But unfairly targeted, he thinks, to one side of politics. Collectively, it helped make up the electorate's minds, he believes, before the campaign was called on April 10.
This election is a choice.
Guys were saying to me on the election campaign, punters in the street, that they would vote for the coalition but their wives wouldn't this time.
Yeah, well, look, that's
was probably the difference in the end.
It's possible. I mean, there's any number of things.
So you knew what was coming?
I certainly had a deep sense of dread
for the others?
Going in. Look, I think most of us, well, you always hope.
The mounting weight of scandals preventing the coalition from narrowing the gap.
Do you think you would have performed better if Josh Frydenberg was the leader or Peter Dutton?
Well, look, we'll never know, but it was certainly never contemplated. I remember the occasional journalist would, stop you in the corridor and say, oh, what do you know? And I'd say genuinely, no discussions that I'm aware of, not even a contemplation.
I'll flip it on its head. Would you have done as badly?
Again, we'll never know, but I believe it was a mistake for the Labor Party when they replaced Kevin Rudd in the first term, notwithstanding all of the issues. When you come into government, there's a sort of pick and stick, you stick with the leader, and I think that was the right thing to do. I don't think it was ever really in contemplation to be changing leaders, 6 months out from the election.
Even when the writing was on the wall. Jonathan Lee, Sky News.